So I was watching, or actually I was thinking about it before rewatching it a bit. Ken Penders said something that really intrigued me in part one of the three-part interview that Midnight's Edge did with him last year. And in the first part, it's around the 23-minute to about 27-28 minute mark. Between basically it's about 5 to 6 minutes, between 23 minutes and 28 minutes almost of the video, or within the video, I should say. He talked about how they began working on the Princess Sally miniseries, and he talked about all the ideas they were running through with it, including the whole Bunny and Sally plot, that was kind of Thelma and Louise inspired, and other things as well, like even before that, the plot of Sally meeting her mother, who was roboticized, and leading this underground cult or group of Robians or whatever. And according to Ken, SEGA shot those two ideas down, and that the only thing Ken could do, along with those working on the story with him, was use Sally, and everything else had to be original. So Ken basically went on to say that that's how we got Jeffrey St. John, and we got the story of the auto animatronic being very identical to Sally in many ways, with the only difference being that the auto animatronic had a purple vest and Sally had a blue vest. But what's interesting about this, though, is when they were interviewing him, about this, and he was talking about it, he mentioned, that being Ken, that SEGA was actually thinking of doing a Sally video game, and that they had presented the idea, went as far as, I should say, to present the idea at the Toy Fair in 1995. And I think it may have been, I think his name is Tom or something like that, the guy that's the head person at Midnight's Edge, or one of them, asked him if maybe it was a testing ground to see if there might be a market for Sally, if you will, to be embraced by the fans. And Ken basically said that SEGA was always looking at that time to expand its audience, expand its avenues to different audiences, if you will, and that basically Sally, from what I could tell, I have to go back and rewatch it again, but I do advise you watch it as well, that Sally was going to be utilized as being the character that would bring in the girls. In other words, Sonic would still look at it as a boy's character, even though both boys and girls liked the character simultaneously at that time. And of course, you had the addition of Amy Rose helping that out a little bit. Sally, basically, according to what Ken says here, if you believe what he says, was being positioned by SEGA at the time to be their gateway for the young girls into the Sonic franchise, which is why they were planning, from when he said, a Sally video game, which, as I mentioned, he basically said in the interview they went as far as to present at the Toy Fair. But unfortunately, I guess it didn't go over very well, and the rest is history. But it's really interesting to hear that coming from Penders, whether you believe him or not, because the timing is kind of weird. It's the timing, basically, the timeline, I should say, works out very strangely and weird, because around this timeline, you had the SEGA World indoor theme parks across the country, and one of them primarily was in Australia, Sydney, Australia. And of course, they had the indoor show called Sonic in Sydney, where at first there was people in costumes, and then it would be later on transitioned into just puppets and all that. And of course, they had meet and greets with these people in the character costumes of Sonic, Tails, and even Sally. And of course, you watch here on my channel, there's an image of that, as well. Somebody actually took a picture of that. So obviously, SEGA was positioning Sally to be, their, I guess you could say, their Minnie Mouse, their Peach, if you will, for the Sonic franchise, instead of Amy. I think, honestly, if you think about it, Amy might have been she was probably going to be a character that was going to be a staple of the franchise, but she wasn't going to be like on that upper echelon. Like, I think the position was Sonic and Sally were going to be like the Mickey and Minnie, or the Bugs and the Lola, and that Tails and Amy were going to be like the Donald and the Daisy. not personality wise, but kind of on that tier level of, who's the main focus, who's more important, like who would you rather choose if you're Sega over one, who would you rather choose one over the other if you're Sega, in a position of like, what character is best suited for certain environments in the games or in stories and all that. So again, it's really interesting to hear that, again, if you believe what Ken had to say or not. I mean, it would explain why, of course, we have a Sally plush come out of various sizes, with this, copyrighted by Sega in between 95 and 97. So it's really telling to know that perhaps what we got with the Sally miniseries was just like the tip of the iceberg of what could have been. But what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on the possibility that we probably would have had a Princess Sally game initially released by Sega? What are your thoughts on her being positioned, if you believe what Penders had to say, as being like the female equivalent for the series, to draw in the female fan base? What are your thoughts overall? Let me know in the live chat during the premiere, as well as in the comments below. Like the video, but what are your thoughts, guys? It sounds intriguing, sounds interesting, because like I said, the timeline kind of does match up, whether you believe what he says or not, that being Penders. But what do you think? Give your answers down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat in the premiere. And again, like the video, but again, let me know what your thoughts are, and I will talk to y'all later.